Nigeria has witnessed growing public concern over the culture of impunity among individuals in high positions of authority. This morning, we're joined by Jerry Udochu, who is the Program Officer, Resource Development and Documentation Center, here to shed more light on what he thinks about the impunity of people in high positions of authority in Nigeria. You're very much welcome to Signature Morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, ladies, and it is my pleasure to be your guest once again. Thank you.
All right. So, what does impunity truly mean in the Nigerian context, and how deeply is it rooted in our political and governance system?
Well, for me, or maybe generally, impunity is the failure to hold people accountable for wrongdoing. And going by that general definition, you can now see that it is one of the persistent challenges that undermine governance in Nigeria, undermine development, and also undermine public trust. Because those in high positions of authority operate above the law, they operate above the institutions that can enforce the law, and also this has resulted to weak institutions, corruption thriving in the society, and of course lack of the rule of law.
So now you made mention of weak institutions and the like. So can you shed more light on exactly how these weak institutions are responsible for this culture of impunity or for sustaining impunity in our political system?
Well, when we talk of the weak institutions, let's take for instance some institutions that are responsible for enforcing some of these laws. We talk of the security agencies like the police, civil defense. We talk of institutions like ICPC that are supposed to fight against fraud. We talk of EFCC that are supposed to regulate financial transactions and so on. You also talk of an agency like INEC. INEC supposed to conduct free and fair elections and so on. So in a way, these institutions somehow in the country have been politicized in the sense that they're supposed to be independent. Both the judiciary, the security agencies, the financial crime institutions, they're supposed to be independent. But you also, in the Nigerian constitution, look at it and ask yourself, are they really independent? Because people say, he who pays the piper, of course, dictates the tune. Being independent in other countries means that these institutions should be autonomy in their operations. They should have what they call it, I think, consolidated account, budget, where they can freely access fund and operate independently. But it's not like that. And these agencies, their budget, the last time we checked, is being included in the executive. So whatever they want to do, they must, go to the executive to seek and probably request for what to do. And you remember what I said earlier, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. And when somebody is the person that feeds you, he determines or directs you on what to do. So this is part of the problem we are having when we are talking of these weak institutions. And also institutions like the judiciary, constant political interference. The issue of a kind of intimidating and complex court processes that ordinary people from citizens from the communities may not be able to navigate such processes. Then high cost of filing, then the corruption in the judicial system, delay in delivering justice, then also selective justice. All these things make such institutions very, very weak. So that because of constant government interference, people in higher authorities you can see that the independence of such institutions is zero.
So how has the immunity clause in the Nigerian constitution also contributed to the culture of impunity?
That's the point, because it's part of the problem and the challenge. When you talk of the immunity clause, somebody who is in the office, be it the governor or the president and so on, say you cannot try such person because of immunity. This is the one of the major factors that influence this culture of impunity in Nigeria. And when people are there, they do whatever they can because you cannot get them arrested and so on and so forth. And for the judiciary, as we said earlier, they don't have that moral power, even also to try people in high authorities. They don't have that moral power to do that because they are not independent per se. Even if when a judge or a magistrate want to do the right thing, and once a call comes in, and it goes the other way.
Now, looking at this issue of impunity, would you say that it is a systemic problem in the country, or would you say that it is a result of individuals and their moral failures?
Well, both. Systematic in the sense that in the sense that if you look at the history, starting from our colonial masters, what structure did they put in place? Is the structure of wielding power, probably to their own benefit, and that is where impunity starts. And by the time they handed over, people also, has learned the same thing, and it came into operation. And I also believe that the colonial masters established a structure of divide and rule, and that has also eaten into us when we were handed over after the independence. The culture of maybe extolling or elevating one tribe above the other and feeling that this is my right and so on. I think this is the genesis of where this thing started. And again, the intervention of the military. We have suffered a long period. In fact, if you look at the statistics in African countries, I think Nigeria has experienced more long years of military rule. And military, they don't operate by constitution or law. It is decree, and whatever they decide, that is what goes on. So this interference between democratic process and the military rule and back to the military also help to escalate it. That's why I say it's something that we say is systemic in nature. That's why I'm trying to narrate this. And even after the military handover, what happens? The military handover, in a sense, is like the voice of Jacob, but the skin of Esau, or something like that. I remember, I think either Ebenezer Babatokbe or Atowanko wrote a book, Civilized Soldiers, and it says from Kaki to Agbada. The military handed over, but in that handing over too, most of them retired military men and become civilians and also come into the governance system. So all these things has complicated the system, and that is why impunity keeps thriving.
Let's look at how this also affects public trust, whereby the selective enforcement of law, how it affects public trust as well.
It has reduced public trust to zero, totally zero. And not only that, it has also been able to give birth to so many other things. One, it has eroded the public trust. The public no longer have confidence in the governance. The politicians who are in the leadership position, how many of them pay taxes? But the ordinary citizens are being taxed and even overtaxed. How many of them even feel the pain of fuel increase? They have their private freedoms and they don't pay. How many of them obey traffic light regulations? None of them. But the common citizen does that. So when the citizen look at them, they now feel that, well, governance is about the high-ranking persons, and nobody care for them. And this also has given birth to so many other factors. It has given birth to insecurity. Yes, because when people see that they can't trust the government, and everybody is doing anything the way they want it, then they will not take laws into their hands. Say if this one has done it and gone free, then what of me? Let me find a way out. It also affects the civil servants. They will start cutting corners when they are not cared for. There's no welfare package and so on and so forth.
Now, what do you think about the narrative about corruption in Nigeria? Because in recent times, we see that some of these anti-graft agencies, you see on the headline sometimes that a particular politician or a particular high-profile person is being brought in by the EFCC or one of these anti-grafts due to some irregularities and the like. So looking at all these things, what do you think is the narrative around corruption in Nigeria? Do you think it is changing? Do you think there is an improvement, or do you think we still have a long way to go?
Very long way to go. But in a sense, I may say improvement in the area of the civil society organizations, their fight against corruption, because I know personally I was involved in what we call budget tracking.
Okay.
Between 1999 and about 2013 or 14. And a lot of things were discovered. You see issues of budget padding. Is this particular incident, I think, when the UN building got burnt in Abuja, and Nigeria now, undertake to fund part of the renovation of that building. That very budget keep occurring in the federal budget consistently, for about 4 or 5 years. During the budget tracking, when we discovered it, then we were now asking questions. This is supposed to be a one-off payment for that particular year.
Why is it keep repeating?
And once that question was raised, the next year it disappeared from the budget. Are we getting the point? So this is just one example to tell you how far this corruption and impunity. So, but like I said earlier, the improvement in the area of the civil society activities, we've been able to do so many things, unearth so many issues, fraud and so on. Then on the part of the financial graft agencies, they have done their part. They have discovered even illegal transferring of funds out of the country and so on. Then the media also, investigative journalism, whistleblowers, they have unearthed so many corrupt practices. But there is this adage by Igbo people. They said, when all these things are gathered, the enforcement agencies, the executive, what will be their role? Do they follow up so that these people will be prosecuted? Rather, what you see that if it's a fund illegally transferred out of the country, and even the benefiting country opted to return it, once you return here, the next day they will germinate wings and also fly back to where they were coming from. So you see that is a problem, progress on one part, that some organizations and agencies are doing their best to fight against this. Then no progress on the other side, because the enforcement agencies and the government, what they're supposed to do, they will not do it. And probably this will be the cause of issue of godfatherism. Political parties, their financing process is not transparent. And we know that they have patrons, they have godfathers who fund them, and they make donations as an investment. and probably to get contract and all these things. And when these ones eventually the party comes into power and start compensating this patron, either by giving contract and so on. And when you give that contract, something you can see in the open market that will cost 1,000 in a unit, in the budget for the contract will cost 100,000, something that will cost 1,000. More than how many %,000% increase? Nobody questions it. Are we getting the point? And even when the people who are supposed to sign it, even if you question, they will say, you remember I funded this party. What? Come and go on and approve this. And it will be approved. So that is the problem we are having, that there is no progress in that area unless something so serious, urgent, and radical is being done.
Absolutely. Let's look at the way forward. Do you see Nigeria realistically defeating this impunity that goes on in our political space?
Well, yes. I believe that the only thing that is constant in this world is change. Things must continue to change. But a journey of 1,000 miles should start with a step. Where do we start from here? We start by total cleansing the entire so-called democratic process. Getting, if possible, we all imperfect. Nobody is totally perfect, but there are at least people who can work with their consciences. People who will know that we are there to deliver and not to take. People who will think about the interests of others and not their personal interests.
Absolutely.
What we see today is that once a government comes into power, they may probably start settling maybe all the agencies or institutions that are assisting them to come to power. But the citizens will be neglected. And that is why I say the so-called democracy. Because democracy by definition is the government of the people, for the people, and by
The
the
people.
people. And they say power then belongs to the people. But in this instance, those in governance will now say, even they will tell you openly whether your vote doesn't count, whether you vote me or not. It's my turn, I will be there. It's as simple as that. And when you cannot be accountable to anybody, nobody calls you to order. Don't you see that it is a free space for impunity to thrive?
Of course.
Now, when we're talking about fighting this impunity, there is another concern that, our system can resort to window dressing, in the sense that anti-corruption efforts, can become tools for political vendettas or, trying to some form of image-making process. Meanwhile, nothing is still going on in the background. So do you think that that is also something that we might have to tackle with while fighting impunity?
Come clear again. I don't think I get that aspect. The question.
Now, when we're talking about fighting impunity and the sectors and trying to reform various aspects, now there is this concern of these the fight against impunity being used for window dressing, for maybe political motivations. You find anti-corruption moves or these anti-graft agencies putting up the front that things are being done to fight corruption. Meanwhile, it's not how it is. So that's what I'm saying. Are we seeing such problems arising while calling for the fight for this impunity?
In fact, that is even one of the root causes of this impunity that will be tackled. Issue of this window dressing. Let me tell you, our country, from the little research I've made, compared to other nations, not even in Africa, beyond, Nigeria happens to be the best when it comes to enacting of laws. We are the best. We have thousands of them. Once the UN or the international bodies raise the issues and say, okay, take this policy and the domesticate, because you cannot take it raw from the worldwide, international level. You have to domesticate it and mend it the way it suits your own country. I mean, before 24 hours, Nigeria has come up with a beautiful policy. So I keep telling people that the issue we have in this country is not about lack of laws, but implementation. So, like you said about window dressing, yes, when you come in terms of that, the whole world will give kudos on Nigeria. We have it. Many of them. In fact, when we say, let us enact this policy, let us review this, I say the ones we have, if we do them and start implementing, this system will be strengthened. But what is the strategy? After writing these laws, it ends on the table. Then after establishing these agencies to please the international bodies that we are really working, one of the tools I think the government has is to underfund these agencies. You know, when you prepare somebody to take a race and you turn and shoot the person on the leg, can the person run again? No way. So they will now underfund something like EFCC, the police, and so on. Even when you call for emergency, they will not be able to move, and so on. So on paper and on the surface, they exist. We have all these things. But motivational aspect of it, mobilizing them to do the work, is it happening? So that's the issue of the window dressing you're talking about. That is why I say it's one of the fundamental root cause of the impunity, and it must have to be tackled. Because when you now, like Igbos to say, salt, then as he's moving, you now, cause the rain. That is exactly what is happening. When you prepare somebody and you equip the person to effectively deliver and give the person the comfort zone or enabling environment also to do it, even if they are fully funded, adequately funded, then what of interference when they want to carry out the lawful constitutional duties assigned to them? That's when political interference. Please drop that case. A friend was narrating to me an issue that happened in one of the banks, and the man came there and said, close down the bank if they don't give him all this money, or you bomb the bank. That even the governor and the AIG, IGP, they intervene, trying to plead with the man refused. But just somebody whispered to the bank and said, call one person, a certain stakeholder in Nigeria, a politician, call the person, and the person called the man. Within seconds, the man and his team of security dispersed from the bank. That's the Nigeria we have.
Interesting. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mazi, Jerry. Thank you for joining us. After you really had a lot to say, and of course we see it from your own point of view, how the impunity of people in high positions of authority in Nigeria affects us as well as a nation. Our guest, Mazi Jerry Udochu, is a program officer, Civil Research Development and Documentary Center. And our conversation, of course, was on the impunity of people in high positions of authority in Nigeria. And this conversation was a really interesting one that brought to light so many things that we are lacking behind. Thank you for joining us once again, and don't forget to follow us on all the social media platforms. We are always live on YouTube 247 and on SLTV Channel 265. I am Quinsley Rowland, and do have a wonderful weekend.
And with that, we will connect to our Abuja studios for the continuation of the morning show. It's always a pleasure to have you join us, and I am Uchenna Chimdi Oluoha.